Our way of life is the backbone of America. Self-reliance, rugged individualism, and open spaces. Our culture is unique and valuable, worth preserving. Through hard work and determination, we will sustain, we will persevere, and we will prosper. We'd like to thank you all for coming and hope that being here at this event has been valuable to you. But we're not done yet. Now we are about to introduce a captivating speaker who has distinguished himself as a leader. He is a true American hero that embodies all of our values.
All right, thank you. Thanks. Let me just say, as a guy who flew in here I was at 8,000 feet when I came in to land. There was actually a coyote on the runway, and a tumbleweed. I'm not joking. You can only, and you guys are out here. I'm just gonna let you know. I saw nothing right up until I saw the runway. So you guys are way out here. So thank you for having me. Andy, thanks for asking me. It's always a blessing. It's always a privilege. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I would, if it weren't for the grace of God, I would not be here. If it weren't for the people that were on my left and my right that day. And what we're going to talk about a little bit is, it's in the program, but the Battle of Black Hawk Down, everybody kind of is familiar with it at least, but you're not familiar with it the way I'm fixing to tell it. I don't know how Secretary of State Pompeo, how he was, or what you guys have had in the past. I'm a little different. I've got no slides. It's kind of odd that I look back and I see myself moving back here. Nobody needs to look at themselves that big. I'm a little different. I've got nothing for you other than a story. Dave, my friend Dave, who I met earlier, was an Air Force lieutenant colonel. He was in the Air Force. If he was here, he would be bringing PowerPoint presentations. They're good with that, so the Air Force guys. We're not. That was a joke. None of you were in the Air Force. How many veterans do I have in the audience? Raise your hand. I should have about 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can always tell the guy. Were you in the Coast Guard? That was like a half hand raise. What was that? If you know those people, sit down and talk to them, find out their story, because I guarantee you the stories will be the same. In the end, if we make it out of something or we serve our time in uniform, the stories that we're going to tell are never about ourselves. It's always about the guys we got to work with, the people on our left and our right. And it should have been like, oh, you should have seen what she did. You should have seen what he did. And our story's no different. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. The Ranger motto is Rangers lead the way. And they never told us that leading the way was about rank. It's not the shiny things you have on your collar or how many stripes you have on your sleeve or the pay grade. They were very clear from the moment you walked into the regiment. It is the example we set for the people we serve. So what I hope you get from this story, and I think y'all are going to get out of it what you want to get out. It's kind of like going to church, but what I hope you get from it is at the end of this, you're going to go, what example am I setting? Who am I actually serving? Because at any given time, we've got people in front of us that we're serving and we're setting that example for. And then the other thing that I throw in there throughout the story is when we need you to set an example and do things for other people is when it's hard. I don't need you when it's easy. I can do it myself. But when it's hard, which obviously we've got some pretty difficult times right now, This is when we need each other. Nobody takes the hill alone. So that's kind of what I hope you get from it. All right, I had about 10 folks that served. How many spouses do I have in here that were military spouses? That raise your hand. 1, 2, I know I have 2, 3, 4. That's the most difficult job in the military by far. So thank you, ma'am, thank you, ma'am, thank you, ma'am. All right. If you had a family member that served, raise your hand. Should be a big chunk of this room. Isn't that crazy that we have so few people that in our presence that serve, but we all know somebody? So if you've never had a chance to ask their story, please go do that. It's very important. They may not, most of them will say, I don't really want to talk about that much. Then just start asking about some of the people that they worked with, and they will begin to brag. Our story was no different. It was a Sunday afternoon. We had been sent into Mogadishu, Somalia, to go get a bad guy. His name was Adid. Adid was a warlord. He had been attacking the United Nations food shipments. Food was the only power in Mogadishu because that was what everybody needed. And if he could control the food shipments, he could control the population. When American troops were assigned to guard the food shipments, he started attacking American troops. And when American troops were being killed, that's when we got sent in. It was called Task Force Ranger. It was sent in as this very small special operations package that was sent in to go get this guy. So we were Delta Force, we were Rangers, we were the 160th Special Operations Air Regiment, which is all the helicopter guys that fly us around. There was a small team of Navy guys with tattoos of small sea mammals on their arms. They like to tell you how secret they are. But do you know how you know a Navy SEAL when you meet a Navy SEAL? They'll tell you. I guess this is great. So we got sent into Mogadishu to go get this guy. We had been in country for 3 months. We had run 44 raids into the city already. In addition to Adid, we had a most wanted list. So that was like all his top lieutenants. We were going after them. And it wasn't happening as fast as we wanted it to happen. We really thought we would own this place in 2 weeks. And nothing ever happens as easy or as quickly as you need it to happen. So we're all kind of dragging. We're really tired. We've been going nonstop. And finally, the 3rd of October was a Sunday. And they said, you guys take the day off, do whatever it is you do. I was writing a letter home to my mom. She still has the front end of the letter. She has it framed. It's in the foyer when you walk into the house. And she just reminds me, you lied to me. Yeah, moms don't want to know what was going on. Because the letter, I never finished the letter. The letter started, Dear Mom, you would love it here in sunny Mogadishu. Because it was right on the beach, and it looks like Fort Lauderdale, so she's going to love it. But they were throwing mortar rounds at us every other day. Like, they knew we were there. The militia, the insurgents that had come in. Most of the people of Mogadishu were happy America was there because we had helped feed them. But there's always that little 1% that doesn't. And so they had been shooting mortar rounds at us. The guy walks out of the airplane hangar, and this is how it goes. This is the airplane hangar, a little bit taller, but about just like this. And he walks out in the courtyard. We're all hanging out there, and he just goes, hey, everybody get it on, gear up. And that meant just like a firefighter, police officer gets a call. So we all drop what we're doing. We all go hustling in. Everybody's throwing on gear and donning equipment. And if you imagine all over this area, you can hear people clanging and banging and throwing on gear and hollering out checklists. So a squad, when I say the squad size element, usually that's 10 to 12 guys, right? Squad size element should be 12 people. The Rangers, all the special operations units are shorthanded. I don't know of any unit that's full strength according to the numbers they should be. It's kind of like us. We deal with what we got. So my squad was only 5 guys, and so each squad is, in addition to your basic load as a Ranger, you had additional jobs, so that depends on that dictated what you were carrying. So just to give you an idea, you've all seen pictures of a modern combat soldier. So I weigh 165. Basic load with the body armor and your kit and your ammo is just 35 pounds alone. That's just to start, right? So then they start throwing things on that. And so all I was doing was trying to shed weight. Some of y'all farm boys, hosses raised on ragu, gooey. What is your cow called again? It was delicious, by the way. But you guys were all raised on this stuff. I was growing up in Florida. You know, I had beans and cornbread. And so you can carry all that weight. All I'm trying to do is figure out how to get rid of weight. So to give you an idea, I have my body armor, my rifle. I had a crowd dispersal grenades, frag grenades, incendiary grenades, extra ammo. I had this rocket launcher on my shoulder that was this old Vietnam era thing, but it was effective. It was called the light anti-tank weapon. So law. You'll hear me say the law, L-O-W. I hated carrying the law. First of all, it wasn't light. Secondly, I went to my platoon sergeant. I was like, hey, Sergeant Watson, how come I got to carry this thing? There's no Somali out there with a tank. You know, and he's like, it's better to have and not need, Sergeant Thomas, than to need and not have. I might need it, but I'm not carrying it. You will, right? So it's pretty, use that on people. It is better to have and not need than need not have. And I remember that. And I had a Remington, an old Remington that I sawed off that I had on my hip. And, we use that for blowing the locks off of doors. And then, so that was just what I'm carrying. Everybody, and I'm not really sure why I just told you that was for blowing locks off. That's just a tip, I guess. If you get locked out of your house, a shotgun will get you back in, I promise. So we're all getting geared up. Now here's my squad, I'm going to introduce these guys because the story is about them. So the first guy is the squad leader. So he's basically, he got the title. He's in charge. His name is Doug. Doug Boren. Doug and I were best of friends. Doug and I were both athletes at the college level. Doug was exactly what you would picture, though. He was like 185, 6 feet tall. I'm trying to make my mic stand 6 feet tall so you can, there you go. So there's Doug. And we pinned on our stripes at the same ceremony. We were the exact same rank. I don't know how come Doug got to be the squad leader and I wasn't. And I thought it was a valid question. I went to my platoon sergeant. I was like, Sergeant Watson, how come Sergeant Boren gets to be the squad leader? How come I'm not a squad leader? And to this day, the only answer I was ever given was, because he's from Texas. So, and it only works when I'm in this state. I promise you, there's always somebody, because I do this all over the nation. There's always somebody from Texas in there, and you hear them, woo! You know, so apparently, you people outrank all of us. So squad leaders are going to go in. They're going to get the mission brief. They're going to find out why we got this call, what we're going to go do. And that leaves the team leaders to take care of the teams. There's usually 2 teams per squad, but we didn't have guys. So this is the one team. So this is my team. My most senior guy was Melvin DeJesus. DeJesus had been with us for almost a year and a half. He had gone through Ranger School. He was a tough guy, street hard, grew up in the hood in Puerto Rico. And there was nothing you could throw at DeJesus that he hadn't already seen back in the neighborhood. You ask him, he would tell you. Everybody knows tough guys. So when I first started working with DeJesus, I remember it was this class they were teaching on this is the Carl Gustav rocket launcher. This thing can penetrate 6 inches of armored steel, has an effective range of 800 meters. Are there any questions? And DeJesus is standing there. He's like, nah, man, in Puerto Rico, everybody had a rocket launcher. I'm like, all right, so I'm glad he was on our side. And seriously, he was that guy. The only reason he was in the Army was that was the option the judge gave him, you know. And so my middle guy was Eric Saransky. Syransky, he was only been with us a year. DeJesus had gone to Ranger School. Ranger School was sort of the Army's premier leadership, light infantry, tactical level leadership course. And when you get through it, it's like getting your Eagle Scout badge. You get to wear that Ranger tab on your shoulder. Well, Syransky hadn't gone yet. He wasn't quite ready to go to Ranger School, but man, I loved having him. I wished every new guy they sent me was like Syransky. He's that guy that you want to hire. He's the guy that you want to date your daughter. He's the guy that he was easy. Because if my job as a team leader was to get my people up to standard and hold them to the high standards and teach them and train them, all I had to do was give him one block of instruction. I said, all right, here's my task. Here's the conditions. Here's the standards I'm going to hold you to. I've shown you how to do this. I'm now going to demonstrate how to do it. Okay, you do it. And he would be, bam, every time. Got you covered, Sergeant. He's the guy. I wish they had all sent me that. They don't always send you Saransky. Sometimes, thank you. Sometimes they send you, because that's a very important piece of equipment there. Sometimes they send you David Floyd. And David Floyd was from South Kakalaki, Carolina, somewhere, which is right down the road from Mayberry. It's like, and he really was. If you picture Barney Fife, if you guys know who Barney Fife is, picture him in body armor. He was 135 pounds. He was like 5'11". He was kind of awkward looking. He didn't look the part. And how he got into the Ranger Regiment, because, I mean, it's a very selective, very difficult unit to get into, was really a testament not to his physical strength, but to his headspace of just never giving up. Because if Syransky was easy to train, David Floyd was not. And it took everything I had to pour into him. And I, in the beginning, y'all, if setting the example for others to follow, if I said that's what I want you guys to do, we all kind of have our own ideas of what that might be. And in the beginning, I thought set the example meant watch how good I am. It's performance-based, right? So especially out here when we start dealing with business numbers and profits and how we're doing our business, we think of setting the example, okay, well, they're doing really well. They must be setting the example. And, you know, I was fast. I could move. I could shoot. I could move. I could communicate. I could do the basics of our job better than most. But I did a poor job in the beginning of teaching David how to do that, because what I would do, I was very impatient. And sometimes, you know, I had that mindset, well, it's easier just to do it myself than rather sit around here and teach David how to get it right. Come on, man, I showed you how to do this once. Why aren't you getting it? And all right, you know what, we'll do this later. Come on. And that's how I started dragging him along. Sergeant Watson, my platoon sergeant, whose main job was to keep people alive and to teach people how to lead others, called me into his office one day and said, hey, Sergeant Thomas, let's talk about Private Floyd. I'm like, thank goodness, Sergeant. Can we move him over? He said, we're going to move him to the motor pool? Or what are we going to do with him? Let's make him a diesel mechanic or something. And he was like, negative, Sergeant Thomas. That young man is our most important asset. And he's your most important asset. And I'm standing there going, and he's like, he's your machine gunner. And if he's not the best machine gunner he can be, that means your squad is weak. If your squad is weak, my platoon is crippled. We are as good as our weakest link. And right now, Sergeant Thomas, you are my weakest link. I'd take a step back on that one because I had never been told in my life. I was a straight-A student, college-level athlete. I had never been told I was someone's weak link. And I went like this. But I got what he was telling me. So I went back, and I started putting more time and effort into him. Like, y'all, I know operators out there that can shoot better than I can. They can move faster than I can. It doesn't make them better leaders. Leading means we take that extra time. So we have this sort of framework, a very simple framework of how we prioritize our life in the mission, in the military, well, in the special operations community. We say it's my mission, my people, myself. We put our mission and we put our people before ourselves. That's the model for the servant leadership. Doesn't mean we ignore ourselves, because the better we are, the better we can serve others. And I had to start putting all my knowledge and wisdom back into Floyd and giving him that extra time. So that when the day came and they say, get it on, and you look over to your right, he would be, like, I grew up in the South, so he would be what we would call a bless your heart. So when you see him coming, that's the nicest thing you can, oh, bless your heart. As goofy as he was, bless his heart, he was a great machine gunner because we had put the time and effort into him, and we had told him that he mattered. And we told him that he was important. And we told him we were counting on him. And he believed it. Time and time and time again, I don't care if you go back to every single biblical story in there, when someone finally understands that they're part of something bigger than themselves, when they believe they're part of the solution, they will step up into the fray. I set that story up. I beat that up, but I'm setting up the story. All right, so we're all waiting for the mission to go down. Sergeant Watson and Doug come out of the mission room. Doug gives me a thumbs up, which means the mission was going to be a go. Sergeant Watson has an aerial photograph. This is the only intel that we were given. And the lesson here is we don't need a whole bunch of emails and meetings to make things happen. The troop leading procedures have lots of steps to them, but they don't have to happen in order. We don't sit around waiting. Well, I'm waiting to hear back from Andy. He never emailed me back. Are you moving forward? No, I'm just waiting on Andy. Okay, wrong. We had all kinds of troop leading procedures in place, but really all we needed to know was down and dirty, 5 W's. Who, what, why, when, and where. Who? We're going after 2 high-value targets. They're up on the most wanted list, those guys. Where? They're in downtown Mogadishu in a building. They're supposed to be having a meeting. When? They're having a meeting right now. We're launching in 10 minutes. Get your guys ready. What? It's a raid. And then what's the most important question that your kids always ask you? Why are we doing this? Why are we going in the middle of the day? Like, I don't want to go in the middle of the day. The 10 veterans in the room, take your shot, like to raise their hand and explain why we don't like going in the middle of the day. Because they can see you. They're bad guys. Like they call you bad guys for a reason, because bad guys generally will do this. They'll shoot at you. And so if we knew they were going to shoot at us, we preferred that they didn't see us. That's why we would go in at night. So they had this meeting in the daytime thinking that it was a safer environment for them. Who, what, why, when, and where. And the only intel we were given was an aerial photograph of the building so that we could identify the building as we were going in the air. I don't know how many third world countries you guys have flown over in your lifetime. Take my word for it. I've been over a lot of cities, whether it's Baghdad, Mogadishu, Tikrit, Ramadi, Kabul. Buildings in the third world where bad guys hide from the air generally look like this. All right? So I was quite disinterested in the photograph they showed us. But Sergeant Watson, anyway, goes, all right, huddle up. We're all huddling up like we're going to get some valuable information. He says, this is the target building right here. He circles it with red ink, and he says, this is the southwest corner where we're roping in on this way is north. Are there any questions? Now, I would love to tell you that your tax dollars were being spent on higher sophistication than that, but that's all we needed to get rolling. 10 minutes ago, I was writing a letter home to my mom in shorts and flip-flops on a day off from training. Now we're heading into the city, and my entire trajectory of my life changed without even knowing it. All right, so here's basically what goes down. I'm going to skip that. All right, so just follow me. Look, pretend this is north. So if this is north, east, west, south, the helicopters come in from the north, and they break off into 2 rows. So we're all packed into all these helicopters. The first row of helicopters is little birds. Little birds are a bubbled, you've seen them, they just have skids on the outside. They got a bubbled cockpit, got a bunch of Gatling guns and rockets mounted on the outside. But because they're so maneuverable, we would use that to our advantage. And we put benches. We just attach these benches on the skids. And so the Delta Force guys, they're going to just sit on these benches. And that pilot can land those things on the rooftop. He can put it, I've seen them fly them right down the streets. Like, they're amazing what they can do. And the Delta Force guys, so think of them like a SWAT team. That's what they're going to do. They're going to storm the building. So they're going to land, step off, and they're in. They're going to storm the building. Right behind them come us, the Rangers and the Blackhawks, because somebody's got to cover the outside of the building so that the guys on the inside are safe. So the Blackhawks are too big, can't land in the street, so they said we're going to rope in on the 4 corners of the building. Corner number 1, 2, 3, and 4. Picture a city block like that. And I'm coming in on corner number 3. Sergeant Thomas, you got 2 jobs in the aircraft. My squad is packed on the left side, so I'm going to be facing the target building. You got another squad packed behind here. They're going to follow your lead. Your first job is to identify the target building and concur with the crew chief. So we're coming in about a minute out. And I know we're getting close because he's slowed the bird down. He's coming down to about 90 to 100 feet. So I'm thinking, all right, got to find. I can see the crew chief staring out his window. I'm leaning out the door trying to, and I'm like, no problem. I'll know it when I see it because it's going to be circled with red ink, right? I'm not kidding you. And nothing goes the way that you want it to go because all of a sudden it was like Texas. It hadn't rained in a long time, and there was a lot of dust and dirt just start swirling because there were so many aircrafts in one little city block. Brownout, complete brownout. I don't know how the pilots could even see where they were going, but I remember looking through, like Chief Wood is the pilot, or Chief Wood's right here, and Chief Fuller's right there, and then the 2 crew chiefs are here, and the 12 of us are all packed in the back. I'm looking through the windshield of the aircraft, and they actually had the windshield wipers on, as if that was going to do something. I'm thinking that Black Hawk has like this high-speed dust-busting equipment that I don't know. And I see the pilots talking to each other, and I grab the headset, because I'm thinking, well, Stan Wood always knows where we're going. And what I actually heard the moment I put the headset on was Chief Fuller saying to Stan, can you see anything? Negative, I can't see squat. And my buddy Siegler goes, what'd they say? I'm like, we're good. Don't tell him. I don't know how Stan Wood did what he did, but I trusted him. And that's such a huge word. You know, you've seen those posters that people put up in their business offices, and it'll say like teamwork and trust, and it'll show like a team rowing or something. I'd like to put trust up there and show Stan Wood hovering 90 feet over an intersection in Mogadishu while bad guys are shooting at him. Like, I think I trusted him. And years later, I asked Stan, I said, hey man, how did you know where the target building was? Because I couldn't see a thing. He goes, man, neither could I. I'm like, how did you know where it was? Because it wasn't like we could just go, hey Siri, show me the target building. You know, I was like, Stan's answer answered every question I ever had, and it was such an aha moment for me. He goes, you know, Carl Meyer was one of the Little Bird pilots, and he was one of the first guys to go in. He generally was the guy who kicked up the dust cloud to begin with. But Carl he just had this uncanny ability to always know where target buildings were. He just knew. So I would just follow him into the dust cloud. I trusted him. I'm like, so he trusted him. Stan was the guy we trusted, and Stan understood what that meant, the responsibility of that. And then my guys trust me to do job number 2. This is job number 2. It may not seem like an important job, but here it is. We're going to come in, we're going to hover at the corner, and we're not going to rappel. Rappelling, if you've ever done it, it takes too much time. You got too much gear, and it's very restrictive, and it's too much time. It's fun, but it's too much time. So we're going to rope. It's just called fast rope is the technique. You just hang a rope from a boom, and then you slide down the rope. Gravity will always work for you. It's not always your friend, but it always works for you. And I used to tell my guys, hey, the rope is your friend. Like, if you want to get to the ground really fast, don't use the rope. But if you want, I need you to do your job when you get to the ground, so use the rope. So the reason I'm in charge of this is because I was the only guy I had a certificate of training from Rope Master course at Fort Campbell. 3 days of my life it took me. I'm a Rope Master qualify all y'all right now. 90 feet of coiled rope. It's about 3 inches thick. It's attached to a boom. Target building. I could see Delta Force guys on the roof. I look across the street. I see bird number 1 coming to a flare. I've got bird number 2 who's already deploying their ropes. I concur with the crew chief. Ropes. Go. That's it. That's Rope Master qualified, you guys. Kick the rope out. It's a small job, but my guys, think about it now. If I told you to get out of an aircraft and you didn't trust the person who kicked, you would want to stop at the door. Are you sure this thing's going to get me to the ground? Like that's it. It's very important to them that there was enough rope. And these, when I get to be in charge, these are the algebra problems that I will start putting into the school systems. If a Black Hawk helicopter is hovering at 100 feet and you kick a 90-foot rope out of an aircraft, what happens when you slide to the end of the rope? It's bad landing. So they want to make sure there's enough rope. Rope's go, everybody's going. I'm the last guy out of the bird, and as I reach for the rope, the crew chief, his name is Ned Norton. Ned is standing there on the gun. You can hear gunfire going, like, already, and there's this sense of urgency, and he's yelling at me, and I think he wants a head count because he's pointing at his helmet. What he was doing was pointing at this sticker he had put on his helmet. It was red, white, and blue, and it said, "No fear." Like, that's what Ned's yelling. He was like, "No fear." And the last thing Norton heard me say was, "Screw you." You know, like, and I caught up with him like a week later. We were in the chow hall. I said, "Hey, Sergeant Norton, what was up with that whole no fear thing?" "Oh, man, Sergeant Thomas, I thought that would motivate you guys." I'm like, dude, you flew away. Shut up. Like, so we were right where we needed to be on the corner of the building. In fact, the mission goes down flawlessly. The only issue that we had was, well, I shouldn't say flawlessly, because if you're Todd Blackburn, it wasn't a good day. Todd was in bird number 4 behind us, and when he reached for the rope, he missed. Todd fell 90 feet. Miraculously, he lived and survived the fall, but they had to medevac him out. And so 3 Humvees go driving up and they grab him, and those 3 Humvees drive away with him. He's okay. In that chaos, we're wrapping up the prisoners. The Delta Force team comes out. There's way more prisoners than we thought would be in the building. So the trucks that are waiting down the street come driving up. They throw all the prisoners on the trucks. We're down 3 Humvees and a couple trucks extra because all the prisoners, so we can't leave. Hey, it's going to take 3 more minutes. We got to get you a ride out of here. Hold what you got. Okay, no problem. Hey, hold what you got. We got trucks coming. 3 more minutes. And in those 3 minutes, I was watching the vehicles drive away with the prisoners and turn the right turn when everything changed. Just like that, the first helicopter got shot down. And it was Super 6-1, so you'll hear me use, those are the call signs. So Super 6-1, there were 8 Blackhawks in the air, 6-1, 6-2, 6-3, all the way up to 6-8. So 6-1's getting hit. And we all knew it because it was Cliff Walcott. 6-1 was always in a rotation. They flew a very low orbit around us to try and cover us from the battlefield. They had 2 snipers, Delta snipers on board, Dan Bush and Kurt Smith. They were both up on there. Bull Briley, Cliff Walcott are going down. That's where the whole Black Hawk Down came from, because everybody had a radio on. You could hear someone starts yelling, "There's the Black Hawk going down." We all look up. I can describe to you what we were feeling when we saw it. It's just sort of spiral. I remember if I told you this is north, he's going down pretty close. He's only about 5 blocks away to the northeast, so 3 blocks this way, and then a left turn. He's right over there. I remember what I was feeling, because I've lived enough life now to know that lump in your stomach when life really hits you. It's no different. It doesn't get worse. When it's a very bad situation that you didn't see coming, and you get that, I mean, I know there's people in this room that have lost somebody in the last 2 years. I know, I'm one of them. I know you've gotten that phone call that you didn't hear, that you didn't see it coming. God forbid something that would ever happen with my kids. Like, even if I start thinking that way, I have to shut it down because I start overloading. It's the same thing. We're all going, I can't believe that's happening. Like, I get that part. I think as a human, and it's a fine. It's perfectly okay to say, I can't believe this is happening to us. But it is happening to us. And the sooner we can come to grips with that reality, the sooner we can understand if it's happening to us, it's happening to the people on our left and our right. We don't go through this by ourselves. And once you come to that reality that it's happening to you, it's happening to others, then you have a decision to make. And I don't ever come in and coach like you guys. I had a high school coach who used to just say, "Do the right thing," and it was his sort of catch-all. I don't believe in "do the right thing" because it's too broad. You didn't teach me exactly what the right thing is. But if we're all aligned on what right is, then I ask you, when the moment happens and you see that you're in a world of hurt and it's coming down on you, man, you got to know that people around you are hurting too. Who do you want to be in that moment? If everyone in this room who I believe wants to be the person who sets the example for others to follow in the service of others, you will become part of the solution. And you will do what you can. Again, we keep everything at a very simple, because we understand that the stress levels that we might find ourselves in are complex and over the top. So we keep your reactions simple. We only have 3 options, y'all, when the world hits you. Let's start right there. Let's not get overwhelmed. Let's not snowball it. We only got 3 options right now when the world hits. We can lead, we can follow, or we can get out of the way. All 3 are viable options. Now, if you know what to do in that situation, getting out of the way won't be an option. So most of us already knew we're just going to lead or we're going to follow. So you tell me what our plan is. Fortunately, we already had a plan. We knew that if a vehicle or an aircraft has some sort of malfunction and has to set down in the city, that it wasn't safe. How would we help those guys if they had an issue? So we already had a plan in place. And there were many different scenarios, but it was a contingency that we had planned for. The vehicles driving away with the prisoners were going to turn and meet us right there. They should beat us there because they're in vehicles. There's 80 of us on the target building. The mission's now changed. Now we are no longer on a raid. We are now going to secure the crash site. I'm watching these 80 guys run down the road on 2 city blocks. I can look through the building, through the courtyard or down the alley, and I can see other guys, Rangers, running down that way. And I can also look across the streets, on the cross streets, and up ahead of us. The entire city has now stopped taking pot shots at us. And, it wasn't, they had been shooting, but it wasn't that bad. And I know that sounds kind of odd to say. People shooting at us really wasn't that bad. And it's not because I'm all that brave. It's just because they were missing, which is that's preferred again. But at this point, they all stopped shooting at us, and they're all running for the crash. So it's a race. Doug and I are the last 2 guys in this long line, and I pick up to move. I'm like, Doug, I'm moving. And I pick up, and I realize he's not coming. And I look back, and Doug goes, man, I'm hit. And Doug was hit. Something caught him across the neck. He's bleeding pretty bad. The medic runs over, starts working on him. Sergeant Watson goes over, runs in and checks on him. Sergeant Watson spends maybe 30 seconds in there with Doug. Comes out, and his first order of business hands me the radio from Doug and says, hey, Bourne's been hit. We got to send him out. You're in charge. Just like that. And I know I had that look on my face because he almost started laughing at me. Like I'm in charge like right now? Like, can you imagine, hey, you're in charge. And the things that run through your head where you just want to stall with the situation, I don't feel comfortable with this decision. I'm going to go home and think about this one. And there was no time. I did stall a little bit because I started asking questions. Hey, and I see Doug running down the road with the medic. I figured Doug's going to be okay because he's running, he's moving. I go, where are we moving him to, Sergeant? Who's coming to get him? And Sergeant Watson's just standing there with the radio. And he waits for me to get done with all the questions. And he goes, Sergeant Thomas, you're in charge. And he let go of the radio, and he moved down the road. He never had to come back and go, okay, Kenny, I know this is a really tough situation for you, and we're rooting for you. And come on, buddy, I'm going to be right here with you. And when you get done, we're going to give you a participation trophy, and you guys are all going to feel good about yourselves. He didn't have to do that part because he had already taught me how to take charge. The lesson here, y'all, it's pretty clear. We don't have to be happy about the soup sandwich that we just got handed. We don't have to be happy that the prices are jacked up beyond what they should be. We don't have to be happy that there's a yuck nut running the country. We don't have, sorry, did I say that? We don't have to be, happy that it hasn't rained. But by God, we got to own it. Because if we don't own it, who does? It falls on someone else. And the mystical, magical someone else isn't a bunch of magic elves. How many times I've heard people on a workplace go, man, someone needs to start sweeping the floor over here. I'm like, you waiting for the elves to show up, buddy? When it goes down, if we don't own it, y'all, and I get it, I understand it. I didn't ask for this. I know you didn't, Kenny, but here it is. And I didn't, this isn't my responsibility. Oh, it is now. Here's my favorite one that I'm just so disappointed in the people in D.C. who continuously tend to say, it's not my fault. You know what, buddy? It's not your fault, but it is your problem. And now that it's your problem, it's become my problem too. And now I have to pick up slack where you're screwing it up. You don't have to be happy. We got to own it because people are counting on us. And I took a deep breath. That will slow down your metabolism. If you all do it right now, you'll feel it. You'll feel your heart rate start to slow, and you'll feel your... All right, guys, look. I clip the radio on my hip. I say, hey, that makes me the squad leader. DeJesus, you're now the team leader. DeJesus is halfway down the road yelling in Espanol, in Puerto Rico, everyone was a team leader. Vamos, I'm like, all right, go with him. He knows what he's doing, clearly. All I had to do was look at Eric, at Saransky, and he just goes, I got you covered, Sarn. And I just went like this, which is like, watch Floyd, make sure he's okay. He's our youngest guy. And the four of us are behind the power curve. When we make the left turn towards the crash, it was everything, the battle at that point was full on crazy. In fact, long before they ever made a movie, we used to call that moment, when we turned the corner, it was as if this perfect storm, like the city got there at the same time we got there, and everybody's shooting. I mean, there are rounds going down the street. There's tracer rounds going out. There's helicopters doing gun runs over our head with these, the Gatling guns on those birds are just god-awful loud, and they're spewing. And you're like, how can there be this many people that they need to be shooting like that? Because we were taught to be very methodical with our rounds. In retrospect, they came back and told us that at that moment we were outnumbered 10-1. So they said 1,000. Imagine about 100 of us now on both sides of the street. The crash is 2 blocks up, just over here off to the right. I could see where there were guys over there trying to work on the crash, and I could see the rest of our element spread down these 2 blocks. The pilots will tell you there were way more than 1,000. I never saw 10 people charging me at once. I saw 2s and 3s everywhere. Rooftops, behind walls, running across the street. And at first they were trying to conceal their weapons because they knew that our rules of engagement were very strict. If they didn't have a weapon, you weren't allowed to shoot. If they had a weapon, you weren't allowed to shoot unless you felt imminent danger from their... I was like, so I went to my guys. The first thing I said, if they've got a weapon, take them down. Because at this point, everybody's up to no good. I don't know why they're all here. They were using women and children to spot and as shields. Like, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't really compute in our culture, but for theirs was a warrior culture. It was perfectly legal. Made sense to them. So it makes it very tough for us to make decisions. It was training for a moment up until it wasn't. Like, I felt like I could handle it. I've been trained for this. I knew what to do with my guys. I'm giving them sectors of fire. It's training until it wasn't training, and that was when people start getting hit. And that had never happened. In the 44 raids we had done, we had never gotten it. We had no casualties. Even the guys that did get hit, it hit like body armor and like for me, every time I got hit twice, both body armor bounced off, and it was like, we're Superman. They can't hurt us. And guys start getting hit, and it changes things. And all of a sudden, it gets so, I guess the best word I've ever come up with to explain it is it's so basic. What's going on in this moment? Like, I really, if I could have, I would have stepped out and just been, hey, time out. Stop. This is stupid. We're just trying to get our guy out of here. Stop shooting. Then we'll stop shooting. Just stop. Nothing against that guy other than the fact that he was shooting at me. So, all right, I'm a better shot than you are. Put your head out here again. This is when I saw, guys, if I could do a whole nother speech topic, I would take this moment here and tell you some amazing stories of heroics, like in the true sense of the word. Like any of the veterans that raise their hand and our first responders and police officers that are in here, we'll all tell you that we kind of overuse the word hero these days. None of us feel like heroes for wearing a uniform. But what I saw happen in those moments was incredible. And the best story that I have to illustrate it is, and I usually don't get time to tell this story, and I hate that I leave it because it's so powerful. But I'm going to tell it to y'all. This is crash site 1, okay, the one I'm talking about right now. When Cliff Walcott crashed, when 6-1 went down, we got the first crash site. Mike Durant comes into the pattern in 6-4 to cover for us. Someone's got to be in the air covering us. 6-4 comes in. Mike gets 3 orbits around. He's in the air about 3 minutes on station. He gets hit with a rocket propelled grenade, and he goes down about a mile over there, 8 blocks that way. None of us even knew it because we were so inundated with this fight. All 4 crew members miraculously survived the crash. This crash over here, the reason it's taken us so long, we can't just grab everybody and run, is because Cliff Walcott's body, The 2 pilots died on impact. The bird flipped when it hit. It went bam! And so the 2 crew chiefs made it, and both the Delta snipers made it. Dan Bush jumped out of the bird first and started, the bad guys were already coming, so Dan by himself started trying to hold them off. Dan took a round in the gut, and he died on the helicopter flight back to so we started losing people fast. When 6-4 went down, miraculously, all 4 of the crew members survived the crash. The bird pancaked. And they were, if you were to see the video of it, it's not very urgent because there's no sound, and there's no soundtrack, and you just see the bird go poof, and you see people kind of stumbling around inside the bird. There are 200, and I'm not exaggerating, 200 armed insurgents moving to that second crash. Super 6-8 comes flying over. They've got 3 Delta Force snipers on board. Gary Gordon, Randy Shugart, Brad Holling. They've also got the miniguns. The two crew chiefs are now door gunners. The one guy facing the crowd is putting, thousands of rounds trying to keep that mob from overrunning the crash site 4. Hey, we're going to insert Gary Gordon, Randy Shugart, Brad Holling. These 3 guys have made a plan. We're calling it in. Denied. Negative, negative, negative. I've got 200 bad guys. They're overrunning. 6-4 is still alive. We're sending in these 3 guys. Negative, denied. Gary Gordon grabs the radio, and he says, let me speak to the actual. And that shut up the airways. I do remember that moment. I still wasn't sure what was going on, but it wasn't making sense to me that there was this other crash, because I didn't realize, but I could hear the airways. Gary says, let me talk to the actual, which means everybody shut up. I want to talk to General Garrison right now. General Garrison's back at the headquarters watching all this on video. Comes over the airways and he says, Gary, General Garrison is from Texas. Some of y'all may know him. He says, Gary, do you know what you're asking us? I think as time has rolled by in my life and I get into a place where I actually believe that I can do something about some of the issues that are going on, I think about General Garrison a lot. And I give a lot of grace to some of our leaders for the decisions that they do or they don't make. Because when it's a difficult decision, there's almost never a great right answer. And we kind of have to remember that at times. I tell my dad that all the time. Like, he's a ridiculous Republican. And I'm like, Dad, you can't have a right answer that's always one-sided. I think about what General Garrison was up against. This crash site, we knew what to do because without a doubt, I'll never leave a fallen comrade to fall into the hands of the enemy. We're going to go save those guys. But then all of a sudden, a second crash happens, and we don't have the manpower to never leave a fallen comrade. In fact, if we move people over there, they're probably going to become casualties themselves. Gary, do you know what you're asking us? The last thing that anyone ever heard Gary Gordon say was, sir, we're their only hope. We're their only hope. I can promise you he didn't know the names of those 4 guys. Gary Gordon and Randy Shugart and Brad Holling make a plan. They're going to move on foot. 6-8 sets down on the ground about 200 yards from the crash. The 3 of them get ready to go. Just as they're setting down, the door gunner gets shot. So Brad jumps on the minigun, which is the biggest thing we got right now to cover him. He goes, all right, you guys go. I got you covered. The bird comes up about 100 feet off the deck so that Brad can get a clear shot. Rocket hits him, comes right through the cargo bay, and takes Brad's leg right off. Brad's on the ground. 6-8 has been hit. They crash land back at the airfield. Gary Gordon and Randy Shugart are on their own. And they move to that second crash, and they methodically try to hold off the oncoming enemy for an hour until they ran out of ammo. They were both awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. And if either one of them were alive, Mike Durant was the only guy that survived the crash. Mike was taken prisoner for 11 days, but we got him back. And Mike will tell you, if it hadn't been by the grace of God and those 2 guys, I wouldn't have made it. If you were to ask Gary or Randy, and why, the why part of it all, I mean, you were told not to go. And you knew that was an impossible situation. I don't think they really thought it was impossible. I thought they knew help was coming. They were scrambling some Humvees. It was only 5 minutes away at the airfield. I think they felt they could handle it. But more importantly, when we know that we're part of a solution, and who do we want to be in those moments when people are hurting, we have a choice to make. He didn't have the luxury of looking around saying, I better wait for backup. Like, even though he was told not to go, we're their only hope. And I love that I get to tell this story because it sort of started shaping the way I retell this story. I focus on that because can you imagine where we're at right now as a nation if we had a little bit more of Gary Gordon out there? We're their only hope. I'm going to jump in and roll up my sleeves. I catch myself thinking about this on a regular basis. I don't think people are cowards out there, y'all. I don't think that people aren't doing something because they're afraid or they don't want to. I think it's they just don't know that they matter. They haven't been told that they're part of something, and they don't believe it. And so what ends up happening is most people, when at times of trouble, they do nothing. And what does nothing accomplish? Yeah, nothing. And it's very, remember, the devil hides in the details, and nothing is a very, very complicated thing. It looks kind of like this. Oh my gosh, that crash has gone down. Oh my gosh, I hope they're going to be okay. And the only reason I can preach on this with any kind of authority, folks, is because I've caught myself saying it. Man, somebody ought to do something about that. And then I hear that voice in my head go, yeah, Kenny, what can you do about it? I'm like, oh. Because it means I got to go do something that I don't want to have to go do. I'm very happy staying at home with my 2 kids and my beautiful hot wife and farming my land. Very happy doing that. And then every now and then something will happen. And the good thing is Heidi looks at me and she goes, and I'm like, what do you think, babe? And she goes, Kenny, there's a Black Hawk going down. You know, who do you want to be? And she supports it. And I go off and I do these really tough things with some veterans that are in some tough situations. When I tell you it's an honor, I mean it from the bottom of my heart. That Congressional Medal of Honor that Gary Gordon and Randy Shearer got, it's the only time in the history of the Medal of Honor where it's the exact same citation. If you read it, it says the same actions. If you were to ask them the why, we all know what he would have said. It would have been because that's what they would have done for me. Without a doubt, we would have trusted. And it's so basic, y'all. I think the platform that I stand on, remember, I was taught leadership, very advanced leadership skills in the Army with very simple methods. Remember, it was geared for 8th grade educations, man. We were like, hey, we're going to make it very simple for you. When it comes down to it and there's people in trouble, you can lead, follow, or get out of the way. Why are we doing this? I can promise you it isn't for the flag. It isn't for fighting for freedoms. Nobody, I don't care how far back you went. You go back to the Alamo. Thank you, that was good. I was trying to think of a Texas battle. Davy Crockett would not have looked over at Daniel Boone if they were there and said, hey, dude, we're doing this for the cause. Fight for Texas. Guarantee you. No one will tell you on both sides of the line, North versus South, that I'm fighting for slavery or states' rights or to make a union persevere. My grandfather's generation will not tell you they were fighting Hitler or the atrocities or the revenge pearl. My dad will not tell you he was fighting the spread of communism and Viet Cong. None of us will tell you we were fighting Al-Qaeda. We aren't fighting Sunni clan fighters. We aren't fighting Taliban, and we're not fighting the spread of global terrorism. All you were fighting for is each other. It is so simple. And that's when people will do amazing things, because that purpose outweighs my sense of self, especially when you're my mission, my people before myself, when you've been told that enough. And that's the way the brain works, you guys. If you get told something enough, you believe it. Call it what you can call it brainwashing if you want, but I'm going to advocate for positive brainwashing. You tell yourself something enough, you begin to believe it, and when you believe it, you live it, which is why I implore, please be careful of what we tell ourselves and we tell our kids.
Stop selling ourselves short. We're magnificent at doing that as humans. We sell ourselves short constantly. We're not. First and foremost, you're a fearfully and wonderfully made creation, one of a kind. There is no other you. There's never been you in the history of mankind. And the story I want to tell you is about an amazing ranger. I just told you Gary Gordon, Rainey Shugart. Go back to crash site 1. We fight through the night. There's 135 guys in this battle. By the time it's midnight, 78 are wounded. There's 19 are dead. The convoy that kept coming for us, remember I told you the prisoners that had driven away, they drove away with the prisoners? They never got to us. They kept coming all night long. They went and got reinforcements. The only other American unit in town was the 10th Mountain Division. Those guys, most of those guys were combat engineers. They weren't street fighters and door kickers like us. They may as well have been ranchers. You know, hey, come on, go help the Rangers. They were given flatbed trucks to go out there. You can't tell me they didn't hear and see what was going on out there in the city. And those guys from the 10th Mountain threw sandbags on the back of their vehicles and came out for us. Whoever wasn't dead or blown up or beat up or whatever Humvees were still working, the Rangers and the Delta Force came for us. And when they got to us at 4 in the morning, I'm linking up with them. And the first guy that jumps off of this vehicle, I didn't recognize him. And I take my night vision off. I'm like, who are you? And he goes, hey, Sergeant, I'm just a mechanic. Again, leading with selling himself short. I'm just a mechanic. I'm like, buddy, you came all night through all that, right? Roger that, Sergeant. Okay, you're my hero right now. And you're an American soldier, and I got boys in trouble. I need your help. I'm with you, Sergeant. You tell me what to do. All right, lead, follow. Here we go. And we spent the next 2 hours, he and I, loading wounded guys into these vehicles, offering words of encouragement, putting bodies on top of the vehicles because there was no other room and the ark was full. It's 4:30 in the morning. We've got everybody up. We got to get them out of here. Okay, which way are we all going? Because we can't just say run for it. The sergeant major looks around. There's about 30 of us that are left. He says, all right, huddle up. He says, all right, here's the plan. 5 W's is all we need right now. 5 W's. Who, what, why, when, where. Who, us, what. We're going to exfil out of here. Where are we going? Pakistani soccer stadiums, 2 miles down the road. We're going for that. When we leaving? I got 4:45 at 05:15. You got a half hour to get everybody up and accounted for, and we're moving out of here. What do you want, Sergeant Thomas? Hey, Sergeant Major, why are we doing this? Why don't we just move to the drop zone back there and get the helicopters to come get us? And isn't that just like me to think because I watched a YouTube video that I know everything, right? I thought I knew the big picture. And he looks at me and he says, Sergeant Thomas, there are no more helicopters. And what I didn't know was not only 1 and 2, but I didn't know about 6-8, and I didn't know about Stan Wood, who had come in that night to resupply us. And in the 30 seconds that Stan was hovering over that crash site 1 in the dark, kicking out night vision and kicking out water and kicking out medical supplies, Stan got back to the airfield. Everything had shut down on the aircraft. He said, I stopped counting at 96 bullet holes in the transmission alone. There's only 8 helicopters to begin with. They couldn't come to get us. Because unless you got any more questions, Sergeant Thomas, in about 10 minutes, the sun comes up and these yahoos start shooting at you. And you're like, nigger, Sergeant, I think this is a great plan. Let's go. So we're running. That's what we're going to do. Running will work, you guys, for a little bit. Speed is security. It'll work for a minute as long as it's fluid and smooth. But you know as well as I do, when you begin to, I don't know where your suck meter tacks into the red, but research is very clear. Athletes, police officers, EMS personnel, when we get stressed into situations that we are not trained for, we will begin doing stupid things. And the stupid things we do are little things that we generally know better than to do. But it's because your body physiologically takes over and starts tunnel visioning. You lose the ability to look around you and see what's going on around you. And what's around you? people on your left and people on your right. This is why you hear about people stampeding others in concerts where a shooter starts happening. You hear about kids scrambling and doing nothing, or people running and saving themselves because their body does this. You better hope that somebody has their head on a swivel. And what I saw happening was people were doing stupid things. The first thing I saw that I knew wasn't right was I saw one guy running down the road, and he stopped. We stopped crossing the streets methodically. What's the first thing they taught you, man, when you cross a street? Did someone teach you how to cross the street? You're allowed to speak. I mean, look before you cross. Thank you very much, young man. You have a very valuable prize coming up. Look before you cross. So the way that we do that, if people are shooting down the street, you should look before you cross. So what we do is put a guy on one side of the street. He covers for you. This guy covers for you, and you're clear, go, and you tag out. People stop doing it. They start sprinting across the road. And now the line is bunching and accordion, and it's all. The captain stops. He stops at one intersection because nobody's over there. You got 6 guys backed up in this tiny little area, which is tactically so wrong, and I'm losing. I'm the 6th guy. I'm like, sir, move across the road. You're backing us up. What are you doing? Sir, and steps right out in front of me. David Floyd, bless his heart. Sergeant Thomas, look out. Go, 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 go. Fires right over the heads of the captain and his entourage. And we all looked like deer in the headlights. I don't even know how we missed it. From here to the wall were 2 guys had stepped out of a doorway with rocket launchers, and they're aiming them right at us. That kid just saved our lives. Now, I don't know if he hit him or not, but I saw him... The guy that fired off the one rocket, got the shot off, he was startled by the burst that Floyd shot. And it went right over our heads. It went, and I went, looked at Floyd, looked by and I wish I had something really cool and leaderish to say at the time. I was like, good shot, Floyd. And he goes, Roger, sir. And he goes over to the corner and goes, all right, you guys are clear. As if to say, I don't know what you yahoos are doing, but I'm going to be doing my job. It changed. I'm not going to tell you that Floyd changed the tide of the battle, y'all, because, but I can tell you it woke us up. We all realized we were moving too fast. And the sergeant major, to his credit, hey, you got a napkin over there? I don't know what I just did. I don't want to bleed all over your stage. This is a terrible part of the story, and I bleed on cue. Thanks. I don't know if Floyd, I wouldn't, and if he was here, I'd tell you the same thing. I don't think David Floyd was a hero for what he did, but he woke us up. And the sergeant major grabs us all about a block down the road because he realized we were all moving, too fast. Slow down, he told us. And you might think running for your life, you ought to run the best mile time you've ever run. Speed it up, speed it up. But slow is smooth. Smooth is fast. We have a saying, slow is fast. Y'all, slow down out there. You'll make less mistakes. And you spend way more time going back and policing up your mistakes than you would if you would just slow down the first time. When I get into the airplane and I'm flying and I get into tough situations, I take a deep breath and I methodically make myself slow down and I pull out the checklist. Most of the checklists I have memorized. But when you're stressed, you'll do this. This is why guys fly themselves in the side of mountains when they're stressed out, because they were focused. What did David do that was all that heroic? Exactly what we taught him to do. Now, I don't know if there's any machine gunners in here who are like, well, Kenny, we don't teach you to fire the machine gun from the standing position. This is true. It's not a stable position. And we certainly don't teach you fire the machine gun over the heads of the captain. He hates that, right? But David made a choice, and he saved us. If you ask David that morning, who's the weakest link? I think David would have told you exactly what everyone in this room would say. Not me. I'm not going to be anybody's weakest link. David looked himself in the mirror every day, and what he told himself was these things that the Ranger Creed that we said every day recited. He said it over and over again. He said things like, I am a specially selected and well-trained soldier. My country expects me to move further, faster, and fight harder than any other soldier. Never shall I fail my comrades. Gallantly will I show the world. Energetically will I meet the enemies of my country. Readily will I display the intestinal fortitude required to fight on to the Ranger objective and complete the mission, though I be the lone survivor. He said these types of things over and over and over again so that when the moment came, he lived it. And David never saw himself as a weak link. In fact, David, I think in that moment, y'all, David was not, I think the weak link was me. Because I was in a position where I saw what was going on. And what did I do? Oh, I stood back here and pointed a finger. And I stood back here and I yelled about how the doer of deeds ought to be doing something different. But did I really do anything that made a difference? Y'all, you can make your point all day long. But did you make an impact? Did you make a difference? All this whining and complaining we're doing out here is wasted time unless you're willing to move forward and do something. What I could have done is I could have ran across the street and covered. I could have ran up and said, hey, sir, I got you covered, move. But I didn't. I just stood there and got caught up in it. But David did. David had a skill set that I took for granted, and I think it was his intestinal fortitude. I think it was his ability to move beyond his physical abilities. Everybody in here, and I tell you this part, we all have gifts we've been given, and at this point in our lives, whether we're using them or not, that's a choice we make. But you've got them. I don't just make this stuff up. I think the reason this story resonates and why I'm still telling it so many years later is I think I'm not making any of it up. I think you guys know when I recount it, I'm kind of reliving it. And when I tell you, when I make points, they're just basic truths. If you go back, I always point out the book. If you go back in the book of Romans, there's this whole, and the reason I use that one for whatever audience. You guys are an audience that appreciates the New Testament. I'll be in Portland tomorrow. I'm sure that they will gasp when I say the word Bible. But I will tell them, if you go look in the book of Romans, it was written thousands of years ago, and it just said humans. That's you guys. We're all part of that race. We all have gifts. If you've got a gift, you go look in and start listing off these types of gifts. You got a gift to be generous, be generous. You got a gift to sing, you should sing. You got a gift to raise cattle. I'm pretty sure it says that in there. And then I don't know if it has anything about the Wagyu cattle in there yet. That's the new King Kenny James version. But if you look in there, my favorite one is at the bottom, and it's just sort of, I remember going, look at that. It says, if you've been given the responsibility of leadership, remember it says responsibility, please take that responsibility seriously and lead well. Like, get out there and lead. Now, who in this room doesn't have the responsibility of setting the example for others to follow? It's a choice. And when we need you to make that choice is when it's hard. There's a Black Hawk going down. Someone needs to be a leader up in here. When Heidi and I, the pastor at our wedding, she was this on-fire Southern Baptist preacher, Bree. And one of the things she goes, in this relationship, you guys are probably going to find moments where one of you is being crazy. She says, you can't both be crazy or else the marriage will begin to derail. She goes, somebody better look like Jesus up in here. And I remember thinking about that going, somebody better look like a leader. And if you're a fan of the New Testament, let's take that one. What did he actually, Jesus was a squad leader. If I had a t-shirt, that's what it would say. He had 12 guys in his squad. I want to see what he did if he only had like 5, like us, but he had 12 dudes. And really, he taught, hey, do what I do. Set the example. Like, I won't be here, and when I've got to hand the radio off to you and you're in charge, you're going to be in charge pretty soon, in fact. And then they're all like, well, what do we do? And he goes, just do what I do. Set the example for others to follow. It's pretty simple. Why are you here? You're here for one another. We complicate it to a point where it doesn't have to. I get things are complicated, but if we got back down to the basics of it, we're here for each other, y'all. Nobody takes that hill out there alone. I don't know whether you got Herefers, or you got Angus, or you got Branga Herefers, or whatever you got out there, we don't make it on our own. We pull together, we survive. No one takes this hill alone. If you need something to tell yourself every day, I got a great one for you, man. It's the unofficial motto of the Special Operations community. It's on every unit out there. The Ranger Regiment has it on their walls. The 160th Special Operations Air Regiment has it out in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. The Delta Force teams have it up at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. All the Air Force teams down in Florida have it. All their special operations. All the guys with the Oakley sunglasses and the great hair and the cool frog tattoos on their arms and small sea mammals. They all have it. And Jay, my buddy Jay, I always give Jay a hard time. He was my one Navy SEAL. And when I met him, it was like, he's like, hey, I'm Jay. I'm a Navy SEAL. I can tell by the hair, dude. All right, you're good to go. Good-looking guys you all are. So we all have it. It's an Old Testament scripture, and it's from the book of Isaiah, chapter 6, verse 8. Isaiah 6:8 reads like this. And I heard the voice of the Lord saying, who will go for us? Whom shall we send? And I answered, here, my Lord, send me. They should have just called that the put me in coach scripture. Send me. Like, y'all, that was easy as a soldier. Send me. I'll go do it. I don't get to do that anymore. I don't get to jump out of planes and go into the dark corners of the world. And whether anybody knows I did it or not, I know at the end of the day, we made a difference where we landed. I don't get to do that. But I do have this microphone. I do know how to get from point A to point B. And I do have a story that I've learned to tell because I took the responsibility seriously. I learned to lead well. I didn't want to tell this story. For the first 10 years of my music career, the first 10 years out of the military, I tried to not talk about it, and people just started finding out. And it became my gift. A good friend of mine was a pastor, and he's like, hey, buddy, whether you like it or not, this is the story you've got. And Jeff was in the battle with us, and he got out, became a pastor, came back into the Army as a chaplain, and called me up one day and said, hey, man, I heard you're thinking of leaving Nashville, and you're going to come back in the Army. I'm like, yeah, there's a war going on, man. I need to come help you guys out. And he's like, Kenny, as you know as well as I do, we can train up another Sergeant Thomas. He said, I don't know any Keni Thomases out there that can sing and tell a story like you can. If you don't tell our story, buddy, who's gonna? And so I had to start taking it seriously and learn to lead well. And with that, I'm going to play this song for you. Now, I don't know what. Oh, sorry, it's a microphone. I don't know what your gift is or isn't. But if you're stuck on what your gift is, I will gladly unstick you. The biggest thing that we've got going while we're above ground on this planet is who's on our left, who's on our right, who's been placed around us. That's the impact we have to make lives. You know what else? I'm going to point this one out. So I always find it interesting when I pick up a guitar, somebody gets up and walks out of the room. You got busted. That's awesome. I think that I got to get somewhere, and this seems like a great break in the action. As long as it's like, oh gosh, what if he sucks? I'm allergic to music. Here we go. So I don't suck at this part. The song I'm going to play for you is an easy choice. It kind of tells the. Andy, you're doing a terrible job with bandages. All right, here we go. Come here.
We'll bleed for you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right. The song I'm going to play for you is about three people. Oh, that's even better. Thanks, man. A band. Like I'm going to stop in the middle of my story. And hang on, y'all. Let me put a Band-Aid on. It's about three people. I can name all three of these people by name. They all had to do something. They didn't want to have to do it. Nobody does. Here it comes.
It's called Hold the Line. It's about 3 folks. I can name them all by name. They all had to step up. None of them want to do it. And when I'm done, I don't know if we have the slide or not, but give me about 30 seconds because I want to explain something to you real quick that's important to me. All right. It's called Hold the Line. Here we go. Blood on their knuckles, mud on their face. They fall back to the huddle for one last play. Cornerback says, boys, you gotta buy me some time. I can get us there, boys, but we gotta hold the line. Hold the line, gonna hold the line. Shoulder to shoulder and side by side. Give it your best, and I'll give it mine, and we're gonna win this together if we hold the line. Got his elbows on the table and his head in his hands. 20 years on a job he never thought would ever end. But his wife says we'll make it, oh baby, we're gonna be just fine. We'll get through this together and we're gonna hold the line. Hold the line, hold the line. Shoulder to shoulder and side by side. Gotta have faith, the sun's gonna shine. We'll get through it together if we hold the line. He gets choked up when the bugle plays. He remembers the battle like it was just yesterday. He knows he owes his life to the ones left behind, and for their sacrifice he will hold the line. Hold the line, gonna hold the line. Shoulder to shoulder, yeah, and side by side. In a world going crazy, Lord, in these troubled times, we gotta all stand together. We gotta hold the line. Hold the line, hold the line. Shoulder to shoulder and side by side. In a world going crazy, yeah, in these troubled times, gotta all stand together. Thank you. All right, real quick. No, we don't have the slide. So here's what I want you to do. If you have somebody who is having a challenge with the transition, because one of the things I didn't talk about, everybody in here raised their hand saying they know somebody, they have somebody in their family. One of the biggest challenges of making that transition back in here to the real world from the military is that you had that person on your left and you had that person on your right who, I'll be there because you would be there for me. And it was an absolute. It was a given. And that's because the trust was built through the shared hardship. When we come back out, the trust isn't automatically there, and it's kind of tough. A lot of people feel lost. And you can call it what you want, but our VA system right now is jammed up with post-traumatic stress. And it's not something they just throw at you and You had to go see all kinds of psychs. You had to go through counseling. Oh, okay, yeah, you got something. Now, how they treat it, that's it's very, very many different ways. But why, when you look at those people in the VA system, the thousands and thousands and thousands that are being diagnosed with some sort of post-traumatic stress, the shocking number is that 80-something%, almost all of them, never saw combat. So why is it that they have an issue? It's not what we saw on the battlefield, you guys. It's that we didn't have this and that anymore. We don't have that sense of purpose. We don't have that human connection. The nation, the world is missing that right now. 2 years of no human connection. We need to be the light. We need to be the example. We need to be the person who says, I get it, we're their only hope. And we get out there. We need more Gary Gordons and Randy Shugarts of the world. And the good news is they're out there. I promise you. I've met them, shook their hands. They're wearing the uniform. They're riding horses and herding cattle. They're putting up power lines in Ohio. I've met these people who are willing to go do some things that others are not. So be that person. If you've got somebody that's struggling with that transition, put them in touch with me, because I know people all over the nation who have programs not to help them, but that they can help with, because they're a veteran and they're on the outside. So I call them up and I say, hey, we heard that you are out. We heard you're living in Texas. We heard that I've got a guy that is looking for some help transitioning. Are you willing to help him out? Yes. I've never met a veteran yet. But I'm very careful to not call them up and say, hey, I heard, Andy said you need help. Because what are most of us in this room going to say when somebody says, hey, I heard you need help? I caught myself doing it the other day. I was in the parking lot at Lowe's, and this guy said, hey, man, you need some help with that? And my little 3-year-old Jet was with me, and I went, no, I'm good. And I got to the truck, and I went, hey, buddy, you know what? Yes, thank you. I appreciate it, because I wanted Jet to know that it's okay. We don't get through this life alone. And sometimes that means you got to ask and accept it. But I don't ever ask these guys if they need help. I ask them to help, and it's the best medicine for them. So if you got somebody, put them in touch with me. You guys got my info in there. It's Keni Thomas. It's Keni, KeniThomas.com. If you can't get a hold of me, somebody's getting fired, because we got too many websites and ways out there. So get a hold of me and put them in touch. All right. I'm fixing the adios. I thank you again. My name is Keni Thomas. Rangers lead the way. God bless you guys.